Hey guys, Ben Watts here for AE Plus. Today I'm going to show you how to create a cool particle dispersion effect using Trapco Particular. So let's check out the final effect. Alright, so we're going to burn this logo from left to right, and there's three elements here. We're going to burn the back of the logo, we're going to burn the AE Plus text, and then we're going to create these embers. Alright, I was working on something through the week for Video Hive, and I used this effect, and I just took it a little bit further. I had hot sparks dropping down onto the floor plane, and they're interacting with the floor, which is really cool. It's just another feature of Particular. And you know, a light in the scene where the text is, just adding a cool glow. But you know, we've got a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's get this project started. First thing, create a new composition, call it Full Wipe, make it 1280 by 720 and 5 seconds long. Okay, we need a new solid. Go with the white solid first, and we need a black solid. Okay, on the black solid, go over to your effects and presets and type in Lineal Wipe and drag the transition Lineal Wipe across onto the black solid. Okay, hit U on the keyboard and hit this button here and type in 300. Grab the last keyframe, start to drag it across to your right and hold down shift and it will snap to the 3-second mark. Alright, now we need to tweak the wipe angle to -45 and give it about 30 on the feather. Okay, so we got this effect here. Now we need to also add onto this solid a roughen edges effect. Type in roughen, drag that onto the black solid and change its edge type to spiky and border to 20 and scale of about 35. Alright, so we can see that wipe happening there. Now what we need is to copy both of these solids. So select them both and hit Control C to copy them. And we're going to need them in the new comp we make. So call this one Thin Wipe. Same everything. 1280, 720, 5 seconds, choose OK. And Control V them to paste them in. Get rid of the roughen edges effect off the black solid and make the feather about 40 on the black one here in the thin wipe, and just make sure at the start of these two solids select the linear wipe, hit Control C on the keyboard and select the white solid below and Control V to paste. So now I've got the same transition on both solids. On the white solid though, we need to change the feather to about 100 and grab the black one and offset it to the right slightly. These two comps effectively drive this effect. So this thin wipe tells Particular emit from here, and the full wipe comp wipes the logo away. Alright, so we got that started. Next we need to create a new composition, and we'll call this composition Emitter. And we're going to make it 600 pixels by 300 pixels. 5 seconds is fine. Choose OK. Then we'll make another one and we'll call this one Content. So whatever we put in this comp, the effect will apply to. So whether you want to burn away a text layer, a logo, 3D render, whatever you want, this is where you would put that to have the effect apply to it. Alright, so that's good. We've got 4 compositions built up now. We need one more, and we'll call this one Main. And we'll go back to the resolution of 1280 by 720 and we'll make sure it's 25 frames a second. I'm not sure why that switched, but just keep an eye on that and make it 5 seconds long. Choose OK. Alright, so we'll just quickly go back to the emitter composition, and what we need to do is put our content comp in here and the thin wipe below it, and hit F4 on the keyboard and change the thin wipes track matte option to luma matte. Okay, now in content, up in assets, I've split up the AE Plus logo so the background and the text are separate. We need to drag in the background version, scale it to 26% and twirl that back up. So if we go back to emitter, we can see that we have our wipe coming across the AE Plus background logo there. Alright, so back into the main comp. Now what we need to do is start to build up the particle effect. So we'll go new, solid, keep it black, that's fine. Hit enter on the keyboard and call it main parts. And go over to here and type in particular. Scroll down, select it and drag it across. So now we have the particular layer here and it's emitting particles in the scene, which is perfect. Control S to save your work. So now we'll go up to the emitter and type in 500,000 for the particles. Change the emitter type to layer and we'll drag our emitter composition into the scene here. Hit F4 and make sure it's a 3D layer. Back to our particles. Zero out the velocity info. Don't need that. And under layer emitter, choose emitter. Okay. And then under layer sampling, choose particle birth time. And under layer RGB usage, choose lightness size. Alright, and now turn that eye off for the emitter composition. Now we'll just go into the particle settings quickly and tweak a few things. For the life, we'll choose 1 second and change the randomness to 50%. The size will go 1, size random will go 50%. Size over life, twirl that down, and there's a couple of presets you can click here to get the curve started. I choose this one. And get your mouse and draw a curve like that, and then opacity will go 50% on the opacity random, and opacity over life, same thing again. Choose that preset there and draw a curve. It just sets it up and makes it look a bit nicer. Transfer mode, we'll set it to add, and under the physics tab we'll just scrub this so we can see what's happening. So you can see I've got our particles being born as the wipe's happening. We'll set the gravity to -150. You can see the particles pushing up now. Under air, we'll go wind, we'll go -150, and twirl down the turbulence field, and effect position 150, and we can see, move this across, hit spacebar to get a preview, the effect is starting to happen. Alright, so now let's get our logo in the scene. So what we need to do is drag in the content composition, and we'll get the full wipe and put that above the content. Select content, choose F4 on the keyboard and go track matte, luma matte. Now we can see our logo is wiping away and our particles are dispersing into space, which is a really good start. Alright. So we got that part under control. Now what we need to have happen is the words. They need to do the same thing. So we can give them the separate particle settings and tweak them accordingly. Because when you go to the effort to separate both these layers out, you probably want to give them different particle settings. You don't have to, but I mean you could just give them different colors, but it does make the effect a little bit more interesting anyway. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that organized. So what we need to do is duplicate the emitter and the content. So select them both, Control D on the keyboard. And we also need another instance of our particles. So select the main parts layer here, hit Control D on the keyboard, and we'll call this one text parts. Alright. So we need our second emitter in the scene. So drag it above the first emitter. Hit F4, make sure it's a 3D layer. Okay, you can turn the eye off, and under text parts, go down and under layer emitter layer, select emitter 2. Alright, and it's not going to work straight away because we have to change out any instance of the first content comp for the second one. And we also, of course, need to put our AE shoots text layer in the content comp, or else we're just going to have a double up of particles on the background layer, which is not cool. Alright, so under emitter 2, double click that to open it. Select this content composition here and grab the content 2 up here, hold down Alt and drag that onto there and it will replace it. Alright. open the content to composition. Same thing, select this layer here and select its counterpart up here, which is the AE Shoots plus text, and drag and drop that on. Now when this comes in, it is a little bit offset, so we need to hit P on the keyboard for the position, and we need to type this in here. So 299.5 and 141.5, and just ensure that it sits perfectly in the main composition. So close that comp and emitter 2, go back to main, and if we scrub now, or we can hit spacebar to have a look, we can see we've got the words dispersing and the background dispersing, which is excellent. That's a really good start. Okay, so let's keep going. So what we're going to do next is just have a bit of a look at how we change the color over life and sort of give this a bit of a fiery look. I mean, one of the key components, if we go into main parts, under the physics tab here and air and turbulence field is really, I mean, they're the settings that seem to affect the motion of the particles the most and give them a really cool look. But we'll go back up to, where is it? Set color to color over life, twirl that down, and we'll attempt to make this a bit more fiery looking. So these little tags, just drag them off the bar here to get rid of them, and we'll start with a red and a yellow, and we'll just dull this down a bit to a more of a dull orange, and this yellow will do the same. Double click it, drag it out to there. Get another one here. We'll make one of these, we'll go a dark grey and one black. Drag the black one out to the end, and if we scrub, we can see a bit of color action here, but it doesn't really take on an intense look until you add a glow to it. So let's go to effects and presets and type in the word glow and drag this down and drag glow onto the main parts. And I am working in 32 bits per channel. If you hold Alt and click this little button here, it switches your color depth mode. If you work in 32, you just get really intense glows. I really like that look. If you work in 8-bit per channel, if you layered the glows, you can see it's really dull. You could probably get a similar effect, but I just find it easy to change the color depth here with Alt click and really tweak this glow. So I'll set that to 2 and just spread this out a bit. Sort of really up to what you think looks good in this case. So we can see as it's taking on a much better look anyway. Starting to get there. And so what we can do now is, you can see here there's a bit of a gap between where the fiery look and the logo happens. You go back into the full wipe, or you lock this comp, the main one, go back into full wipe and drag this black solid at the top across to the right. You can sort of bridge that gap a bit. Now you can sort of do whatever you want with it, but just work it out. Put it wherever you want. Unlock the main comp, go back, and yeah, I just thought that looked a little bit better. Okay, so now what we can see is, we can't really see our grey to black gradient coming off here, so let's add a grey solid to the background. Come down here, hit Control Y on the keyboard, and just select a dark grey solid, and drag it underneath everything. And I can see that I'm going to need to fix this, so I'll go back to color over life. It's just too dark. Let's switch these around, reverse them. So we start off black, we go to a more lighter grey. We'll just bring that up a bit. There we go, we can see a bit of action. Now it's too light, but you get the idea. Maybe darken this one off now. Starting to look okay. Obviously one distracting thing here is the text particles, not only do they have the same motion as the background layer, they're white. So we can really change that up as well. So if we go into color over life of the text layer, it takes on an ugly multicolored look to begin with. I'll twirl that down, and we can maybe, I think in the final effect I just went black up here, and then it just gradually turned to grey over its life. Added several tags there, geez, heaps of different ones. You can do that quite easily if you click too quick and too frequently, which I tend to do a lot. Alright, so now we can start to see the look happening. If you think it looks too grainy, you can turn on the motion blur. It does give it a different look also. If I turn on the main cop motion blur and switch on the motion blur for both the particle layers, it'll take a little bit to render. If we zoom in and have a look, you'll see that it does make the particles look a lot smoother. See, that's with it on, and in a sec, that's with it off. It's a bit grainier. Again, it's up to you. Depends on what look you're going for. You might like it looking really grainy like sand. You might want to make the color over life go from a dark brown to a light brown. You know, it's really up to you. So Control S to save our work, and we'll keep going. Alright, so we've got that sort of built up, and of course you could tweak this for hours, but I'll probably leave it at that for the tutorial. One thing we didn't do though was change the motion. So if we go to the wind and we go -50 on the text layer, so it's not blowing away to the left as hard, and affect the position a little bit more, 350, and we'll go a bit more on the scale, make it a bit more chaotic. And another cool effect, setting, is fade in time. This is really sensitive. You only want to go maybe 0.4, or maybe you want 0.3, and it just means the effect of the turbulence happens on these particles sooner. So I'll hit spacebar. And yeah, they've just got a bit of a different look now. Okay, so we know that we can go into our full wipe, and on the black solid at the top we've got a linear wipe transition, so we know we can change the angle on that. And in thin wipe we happen to have this same linear wipe on the black solid and the white solid. But what if you want to change the angle of the effect? Well, you're going to have to go into 2 compositions and change 3 settings on 3 different linear wipes to make this happen. And for me, I don't know about you, but that's painful. So I wouldn't think anybody would like to do that. So let's provide a solution for that. So what we're going to do is go new solid, and we're going to make it black, and we'll just call it main wipe control. Alright, so this is going to be a global control that we'll just switch the eye off. We're going to change the wipe angle here, and it's going to change the wipe angle for all the linear wipes respectively. So we'll go over to linear, drag this down, and we'll just get transition linear wipe, drag that on, and now we have a linear wipe on this black solid, which we're going to use as our master control. So what we need to do is twirl it down to expose the wipe angle property here, and we're going to grab first of all the full wipe comp, and we're going to highlight this and just drag it down slightly, and it splits the timeline pane into 2. So it just means we can go to main here, see the we bring this up, see the wipe angle here. We stretch this up, we can hit U on the keyboard and twirl down the linear wipe and get to its wipe angle here, so we can use a pick whip to parent this to this down here. So what we're going to do, go to here and alt click the stopwatch, and we're going to drag it down to this wipe angle on the main wipe control. Let it go, click, and you can see this now is controlled by the main wipe control. So I'm going to do the same for the thin wipe composition. So I'll close this up and we'll go thin wipe, drag it down. Alright, now we've got we've got to do it two times here. So hit U on the keyboard. If you don't see the linear wipe property, just twirl it up and twirl it down again. Go back to main, and we want to alt click its stopwatch, drag the pick whip down to the wipe angle, select it, click, done, and twirl it up, go to the white solid below, effects, linear wipe, and same again, alt click the wipe angle, drag it down, and click, done. Alright, so what we're going to see happen now is the effect looks like it's just wiping from right to left, and the reason it does that is because the master control is set to its default state at positive 90 degrees. So if we take on our old setting of negative 45, bam, everything works. We've changed the 3 linear wipe properties with the one master wipe control here, and that's perfect. I mean, like I said, no one should have to go in and out of comps just to change these settings when you can easily rig it up to a main wipe control. So that's sorted. You can see as I change this around, the angle's going to change as well. So you can make it burn from top to bottom, left to right, whatever you want. It's just one easy to use control now. So that's that. Let's go on and talk about setting up a basic camera rig. Alright, so next we'll create a new camera. We'll make it 50 millimeters. Okay, and we'll go new, null object. We'll click it, hit enter on the keyboard, and type cam control. Alright, so I always like to grab the pick whip and link the camera to the null object. I find it easier to animate a null object rather than a camera itself. It's just, for me, quicker, and there's not as, well, you don't have to worry about the point of interest on the camera. It just seems to be a bit easier for me. So we can just use this now. Now what we need to do for this effect to work in 3D space is just select our full wipe and our content and make them 3D. And if we go to the cam control, hit R on the keyboard, you need to make it 3D also. I nearly forgot that. Hit the 3D switch, and if you scrub the Y rotation, okay, you can see that particular is a 3D particle effect, so you have depth to the particles. And in the particle settings as well, by default, the emitter size in the Z is 50. So you do have a thickness of 50 pixels. So you can change that to 1, and it just lies flat. And obviously the glow is too intense at this angle because we've got the particles set to add in the blending mode, and obviously, sorry, the transfer mode. So we set that to normal. It's not quite as strong, but and just to demonstrate this a bit more, going back to the emitter, so we'll go 80. You can see that, so it actually stretches out in 3D space. So you can rotate this effect, do whatever you want, make a cool camera move, and it's all going to work. Alright, so that's just to show that. I'll set that back to 0. So have a play around with that and just see what you can come up with camera move wise. You could create something really interesting. And if we go back to our wipe control, set that back to negative 45, so we've got our default look back. Okay, so just a simple camera rig there, and just making these layers here 3D just gives you the option to move the camera through the particle system if you want to show that depth, and it can look really cool providing the animation is done right. Alright, so let's move on. Well, one thing I almost did forget was the fact that as we're looking at this, we haven't actually made our white AE Shoots logo appear in the scene. So let's go ahead and fix that up. So all we're going to do is drag in our content to composition and another instance of the full wipe. So if we can find that content to, drag that underneath the first content, and above that drag another instance of full wipe and set the content to track matte option to luma matte. There we go. So now we can see our white text sits in the gap perfectly and wipes off. So lucky I thought of that. That is quite an important step to miss. Alright, so obviously jumping back a couple of steps, talking about the 3D space and whatnot, hit F4 on the keyboard and just make sure the second instance of full wipe and content to are also 3D. So when you rotate this camera control, everything stays in check. A couple of other things I just want to talk about before we keep moving on is in your particle settings you have different particle types you can use. We go back up here to particle type. You've got sphere, glow sphere, streaklet, sprite, cloudlet, textured polygon. There's a few different options. Now they do give you different looks. So if you select glow sphere, I'm going to blow it right out here, but if we tweak the glow back down, so we've got one. It just gives it a bit of a different look. So you might like this look more. I can see that the smoke needs work, it's too light. But have a play around with them. And some of the other settings that you might want to have a look at are just, I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but in the physics, there's some great settings in there to really change the look. Color over life, of course, I've already touched on that, really important. The fade in time. You can use bounce layers, so I'll show you a comp I'm working on later for Video Hive, and I've utilized the option bounce in the physics tab, just showing how the particles can interact with a ground layer. Don't forget, of course, motion blur, really important. Now the motion blur that's built into After Effects does work fine, but using something like Real Smart Motion Blur, a plugin for After Effects, can really change the look. I do have it on my machine. If I go to say the main parts here and I apply it, I type in RSMB and drag it on, we'll see it really does have a dramatic effect. So we can see here with it off, you can see the little particles. If I turn it on, gives it a really nice streak look. So it's another option. Not everybody likes to use plugins, mainly I'd suppose because of the price, and they aren't cheap, a lot of them, but if you're using them all the time, they are cheap for what they do and for what you get with them, so just consider that. Alright, so what we're going to do now is talk about creating the embers. So what we need to do is duplicate our main parts, so Control D on the main parts layer, and we'll switch off the first instance, and we'll switch off the text parts as well, because we really only need to focus on these embers. So we're going to go to the particles per second and just go 10,000. We don't need a lot here. Okay, so the main thing we need to do here is just tweak the gravity and the physics. So first, before we do anything like that, we'll go down to our glow. We'll pump that up to about 3, and we'll just drop this radius right down just so we can see them. Alright, and color over life, we probably just want it, drag this off here. Another thing you can do, add your tags, get a more reddish orange, just add in a couple of random shades, and you can select random from gradient, and it'll just pick a random color from this color ramp here that you've created. I really like using this setting for smoke and of course for these embers here. Alright, so we've got that. Now we really need to work on the motion. So drop down to the physics tab, and gravity we want to go with about -600, and we'll go with the life, change that to about 0.75, We'll go 80% on the life random, and we'll just have a quick look at the motion. Now with these, I've found they don't really look great until you turn on the motion blur, because they look like little dots now, but with the motion blur they streak out and look like a lot more like embers anyway. So let's change the size. They're a little bit big. We'll go 0.8, and size random we'll go 80. Actually, we'll drop that lower, we'll go 20. And then what we'll do first, we'll switch on the motion blur, and we'll call these ember parts. Whoops. Okay, turn on the motion blur, and you can see already, just have a preview, they're not spreading out enough, but they are starting to look a lot better with the motion blur. Probably need to dial down the scale, I think it's a bit too chaotic. Go down to 8. Effect position, we'll take that down to 100. And complexity we'll go with 8. Have a look at that. And also we will, fade in time we'll go 0.3. So they're a bit more chaotic earlier in their life. 0.4. Alright. We don't want so much wind in the negative X value. So we want them to shoot up. You can see our screen here. So let's turn on the other particle layers. Let's take a quick look. Turn off the motion blur to begin with. Okay. There's too many, so we'll go to 6,000. And if we turn on the motion blur and check that out, so starting to take on its look. Essentially this is the effect completed. It's most of making it look nice is spending time with these settings and just really having a feel around and just see what you can do to refine the look. But we've got everything in place. We've got the background, we've got the text burning away, and now we've got our embers. You just play with around with the motion like it was in the physics settings for the embers, the life, the opacity over life, things like this. Actually, quickly, what I do like to do with these embers is set this default curve here, this hump, and I find that works a bit better. And also we'll make them smaller. So we'll just have one more look. The glows may be a bit intense, and the smoke definitely needs work. Rather, the color over life for the background layer needs to fade to black earlier. You can see, we can see we've got our embers coming off, which is, it's a really good start. I mean, from here on in, just tweak it up and make it your own. Alright, so I think we're done for the tutorial. We've covered how to make all the elements from scratch and all the core techniques involved in doing that. What I've done here, just one more thing I wanted to show, was I've added a text layer into the content comp and just burn it away, changed color over life to blue, and obviously tinted the embers blue. So if you go into the content comp, you can see it sits above the AE Tuts Plus logo. It's really just that easy to customize it, so go for your life with that, see what you can create. Alright, just looking at the final render again, just to make sure we've covered everything. So if I look at that, we've definitely covered the background, the foreground layers, and the embers, so that's definitely completed. Now before I go, if you guys do come up with something that looks really nice using this effect, I'd love to see your work. So if you want, contact me through Vimeo. Just look up Ben Watts or drop me an email. It is hdvideography@hotmail.com. So either one of those methods will get me. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun creating this, and I hope you guys got something out of it. So that's it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.